I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG. I'm here to answer your questions about ham radio, particularly from those new to the hobby. We've all heard that in the event of a disaster, amateur radio operators are often the first on the scene. This is because most hams are equipped with their own radio gear, and many can operate under emergency conditions. But there's more to it, much more going on behind the scenes before disaster strikes. And that's what this video is all about, understanding the preparedness cycle and how to take advantage of it. This diagram of the preparation cycle has its origins in military practice. As you can imagine, the military doesn't just take men and women off the street and deploy them into battle without training them, equipping them, and organizing them. And that leads to this cycle. Prior to the emergency, hams must be organized, equipped, and trained. Is it possible for a person to simply pick up a ham radio and use it in times of duress without any preparation? I wish it were that easy. Here I have a nice little inexpensive Baofeng Chinese dual-band VHF/UHF radio. What happens when I turn it on?
Channel mode.
The answer? Absolutely nothing. Given there is no signal on that frequency, the radio squelches the audio, leaving only silence. This leads to the next question. To what frequency should I tune to hear somebody? This radio can tune in 5 kilohertz increments. In the 2-meter band, which is 4 megahertz wide, that means there are 800 possible frequencies to which the radio can tune. And it's more on the 70 centimeter band, which is 30 megahertz wide. That's 6,000 possible frequencies at 5 kilohertz spacings. Without advanced preparation, you won't know where to tune. Using a radio on the amateur bands requires a license. A license helps you to know when and where to transmit. It also helps you to know where not to transmit. We want to cooperate with civil authorities, not accidentally trample them. But your simple radio can be a major asset in a disaster or emergency situation if, and only if, you are prepared beforehand. In other words, before deploying with your radio, you need to have the right equipment, all in working order, know how to use it, and know how to operate in cooperation with other stations. Then, when disaster strikes, you are trained, equipped, and organized. You can then deploy and make a meaningful and sometimes life-saving contribution. Lots has been said about amateur radio organizations such as the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, or ARES, or the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, or RACES. These are great organizations to join. These organizations work closely with served agencies, usual local governmental organizations, to provide essential communications when normal channels are down. But there are other groups you can serve. For example, your church group may want to assess the needs of its parish or congregation so that local resources can be brought to bear immediately. Or the organization could be as simple as your family, so that husband, wife, and children can locate each other, ascertain status, and coordinate getting to appropriate shelter. Let's look more closely at each of the links in the preparation cycle. First, training. Training starts with getting an amateur radio license. Many resources, both in book form and online, are available to prospective hams. Hands-on classroom training is effective if there are enough people to fill a class and an instructor is available. In lightly populated areas like where I live, such classes are often unable to serve large numbers of people. So, I've put together a series of training videos that go hand in hand with the ARRL license manuals, section for section. These are available in the form of playlists on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Dave Kassler. Or you can go to ke0og.net/training for the Technician Series, ke0og.net/general for the General Series, and ke0og.net/extra for the Amateur Extra Series. These videos very deliberately do not teach the test, but rather teach background material to help you understand the book better and to be better equipped to get on the air once you're a ham. Literally thousands of people have used these videos, and I've received gratifyingly positive support. The next training aspect is using your equipment. That means knowing how to set it up, connect it to other equipment, determine if it's operating properly, and be confident in using it. You also need training in the emergency communications protocols for your group. This usually means continuing involvement in training exercises to keep your skills sharp. As you can see, these items overlap. Let's talk about equipping yourself. To use a radio in an emergency, you need to have one. That may sound obvious, but you need a radio you can depend on, plus backups. Usually for 2 meters, this involves a so-called mobile rig, which can operate in your vehicle or at home as a base station. These rigs require an external antenna. Handhelds can be used too for close-in work and for coordinating with the stronger base stations. So, here's your checklist. A radio, a dependable power source, and a good antenna. The next step is to make it truly portable. This is where the term Go Kit comes from, meaning you have all of this in a box ready to grab and go. You may want to add spare radios, microphones, and headsets, plus lighting, notebooks, food, shelter, sanitation, and a way to stay warm and dry. I note here it's easier to equip yourself if you're mentored by other hams. You can join local community amateur radio clubs and become friends with experienced amateurs. I offer this strong advice. Do not purchase or acquire equipment until you have your license. I've seen too many people spend money on equipment and then, for whatever reason, never get their license. Some say that getting the radio will spur them on to get their license. It's been my decades-long experience that this doesn't work. Let the thought of a juicy piece of equipment spur you on, then buy the radio as a present to yourself after you've passed your test. Please, I really mean that. Organization, including proper planning, coordination, and exercises, is key to successful emergency communications. You will respond to an emergency as directed by a plan with which you are thoroughly familiar and have confidence in. Part of planning is reducing or eliminating interference with other emergency response efforts and rendering mutual aid. The time to coordinate with other organizations is prior to a disaster. Organization includes preparing and vetting plans, coordinating with all involved, and preparing and executing drills. In the heat of an emergency, prior practice is essential. Note that planning includes determining under which conditions you will deploy. Deployment means activating yourself and your equipment according to plan. During a deployment, civil authorities will also likely be deploying, and mutual cooperation is essential. Let's talk about after the emergency. Check, clean, repair, and properly store all your equipment for further use. No amount of planning can completely prepare you for every emergency, so there will be lessons learned. Get together with your group to look at what worked and what could have been done differently. Incorporate these ideas into your plan. Remember, emergency communications is only one facet of ham radio. Some hams like to focus on it. Other hams do participate in executing emergency plans, but usually prefer other aspects of the hobby. I'm one of these. I love rag chewing, chasing casual DX, and dipping my toe into contests. I especially love field day, but then again, the purpose of field day is to exercise our equipment under field conditions, meaning emergency conditions. I often emphasize how productive it can be to associate yourself with a local ham radio club. You'll meet other people with like interests. I'm a member of the Montrose Amateur Radio Club here in Colorado, and club members regularly participate in ARES and RACES planning and exercises. These participants report their activities at every club meeting and are delighted to have other club members join them. Our weekly picture comes with a story. That's me. Some years ago, I commented to my wife that I'd love to have a motorcycle dirt bike so I could travel the many trails and jeep roads in the area, so I could see for myself what other people were talking about. She told me that I wasn't getting any younger. I took that as a yes, and that very day we went to the Yamaha dealership. I wanted a bike that I could sit on and have both feet firmly on the ground. I also told the salesman that I wanted a bike light enough that I could pick it up by myself if it fell over at 12,000 feet above sea level. I purchased a small XT250, which fit my needs perfectly. This picture shows me only days after getting the bike. I had 5 good years on this wonderful machine with many happy memories. It is true that I eventually broke my arm. Although I rode some after that, I decided that I actually wasn't getting any younger, so I've graduated to something that has 4 wheels. That's it for this week. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll get notice of future videos. I try to upload a new Ask Dave video each week. Send your questions to ke0og.net/ask-dave, or simply comment on this video on YouTube. There's a tip jar on my channel page if you wish, or you can use the one on my website. I hope to see you next week. Until next time, 73.